Hi, Waupaca. It's another edition of Diabetes Coffee Talk. And I actually have coffee with me this morning. Here, listen to me slurp it. Love it. Did you know that coffee's actually not bad for you? Actually, I went to a diabetes conference one time. This is Marcy Reynolds, by the way. And there was a breakout session on, the research on coffee. And one of the biggest things that we learned was there are not a lot of people willing to take on research on coffee because people love it so much and they don't want to find anything bad with it. So I thought that was pretty cool. I've got a wonderful guest this morning. Her name is Ashley Gordon. She's an artist and she's a mother and she's just an all-around wonderful person. And she's going to talk with us this morning and about her child who has type 1 diabetes. Before we get to Ashley, I just want to make one announcement. We do have the pre-diabetes class, which is an awesome class for people who have been told that they're on the borderline or on the fence. If you have just a little bit of elevation of your fasting blood sugar, or you have diabetes in your family and your doctor's told you, hey, you better watch out, or your nurse practitioner told you you're doomed to have diabetes, this is the class for you. It's a really fun class. It's 9 weeks long. We meet once a week. Everybody that takes this class loses a little bit of weight, gets on a little bit of an exercise kick, and because we meet 9 weeks in a row, people actually kind of make that part of their lifestyle, and they do go on to prevent diabetes. So we're hoping that we can get people to sign up. You just call the Theta Care Central Scheduling at 258-1119 to sign up. It starts March 28th. It starts at 5 p.m. every Monday for 9 weeks. We are all BFFs for 9 weeks, and we hope that you sign up. There is a fee for this class and all kinds of fun. We exercise, we cook together, we talk together, we learn together. A lot of fun, so please consider signing up for this class. We have a few seats open. We want to have it full because a big group is a fun group. All right, now let's talk about diabetes. By the way, that was a pre-diabetes class, so if any of you are listening to this and you're interested in diabetes, that probably means you're pre-diabetic, so you should sign up for the class. All right, so now on to our guest. I have Ashley Gordon, and Ashley's a wonderful artist that I've gotten to know through our arts board stuff and through work because she's done some art projects with some of our patients in our cardiac rehab and pulmonary and wound care and diabetes ed programs at Theta Care. And it's been tons of fun working with her that way. But we've also gotten to know her a little bit because her daughter has type 1. Good morning, Ashley.
Good morning, Marcy and Waupaca.
So I asked you on the program, and as you know, we have no plan. We're just going to chat because it's coffee talk. Have you ever seen that coffee talk skit on Saturday Night Live?
I have.
Isn't it the funniest thing ever?
It's the best.
Yeah, I'm verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves. I bet you get pretty verklempt at times.
I do. It's a very grueling and arduous task taking care of somebody with diabetes, one or two. So
yeah, but type 1 has its own special place in heaven.
it does.
Yeah, especially when it's a child, right?
That's correct.
Because you never get a break.
I do not.
And neither does your daughter. Now, how
No.
old is your daughter?
She will be 10 in April.
That's right.
Yeah, we're going on 5 years that she's been diagnosed. So 5 years.
Oh, my gosh. So she was just almost just a toddler.
She was 2 weeks before she started kindergarten.
Wow. Did she go to the first day of kindergarten?
She did. She did.
Oh, my gosh.
But that was a
No.
lot to fit in a couple of weeks.
It is. So right now I'm thinking, okay, I told you 20 minutes, but we might be here all day talking about this. Okay.
And we still wouldn't cover everything that people need to know.
No. And this show, Coffee Talk, is not about education. It's just about talking about what it's like. Because what I find is whether you have type 1 or type 2, but actually especially type 2, people's self-esteem goes in the toilet within about a month of being diagnosed because it's like, I'm a bad person. I feel bad about myself. And I think it's because you have to constantly be looking at what you're eating, what you're not doing for exercise, looking at those blood sugars. And you do that day in and day out, and it's just a grind, and pretty soon you just feel like crap. Now, for a type 1 person, I think it's a little bit different as far as the type 1 people that I've known that have grown to be good, healthy, strong adults, but they still have to look at their blood sugars. How many times does a person with type 1, how many times does your daughter have to check?
Well, in our case, we do 10 to 12 blood checks a day.
Do you hear that, type 2 people? Quit complaining.
10 to 12
10
blood
to
checks.
12.
Every 2 to 3 hours we check her.
So do her fingers get black and blue? Does she complain about that?
At this point, we're totally calloused, much like
Holy
a guitar
cow.
player would be.
Oh, well, is she going to take up a stringed instrument?
I
This
hope
would be a
so.
good thing for her.
Absolutely.
B.B. King was
A diabetic as well.
he's diabetic. He tested a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
10 to 12. So throughout the night?
Absolutely. We are testing, for example, when she wakes up in the morning at 5 or 6 a.m., and it's every couple hours. So, for instance, at night, by 2:30 in the afternoon, then we're checking at dinner time, then we're checking at 8 p.m., then at midnight, and at 2 a.m., and at 6 a.m. So
I gotta have some coffee.
for me, thank you.
Do you need some coffee? You must just like drink coffee all the time.
I do. I wish I had an IV for it.
Oh my gosh. So what about you? I mean, how do you sleep?
That's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing. And I've been a mother. I have 3 children. And when you have a newborn and things like that, of course, you know you don't get any sleep.
Right.
And I've been in a perpetual state of small snippets of sleep for the last 5 years. So when people say they're tired, I laugh inside my head.
Oh my God.
So, and it's really nice if when you have 2 people, caretakers, but in a single parent home, it's really hard. That's all on you. So every night I'm the one waking up and testing her all the time. And it's really sad too sometimes when you're just so exhausted. And I will say and admit, I have slept through an alarm at 2 a.m. and I feel so horrible about it.
What a bad mom you are.
It's hard. And most people will be like, "Oh, that's not a big deal." But in a type 1's case, they're so fragile that an hour or 2 does make a huge difference. When you don't have to cross that bridge until you get there, but you're always worried. It's in a constant state of surviving is what
Right.
it is. And so when you do miss those alarms, it's very scary. You have to walk into the room and you're always worried. Are they going to be awake? Did they
it too
have
high?
a low? Yeah. Or a
So
high?
mostly you're testing for highs, correct? Or are you testing
I'm
for lows
testing
too?
for lows. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm just going to catch everybody up because 80% of our population is type 2, and I don't know. I actually do know a couple of really vigilant type 2 people who test a lot, but I don't know anybody that tests 10 or 12 unless they're a type 1. So the reason people with type 1 have to check is because they don't have any other way to produce insulin other than the shots or the pump. They have no insulin being produced by their pancreas. So, if there's no insulin, that blood sugar can go up very rapidly, and they don't have any mechanisms, other hormonal mechanisms, to be that second line of defense against lows that could be dangerous and highs that could be, fatal. I'm just going to say.
Oh, absolutely.
Which,
That's
I
hard.
remember once we had a type 1 kid support group, and the people that came were people that were really struggling. And when we mentioned the word fatal, I mean, there were people yelling at me like, what the heck? That's not fatal. But, it is.
It's the reality we live in.
It's
That
the
is-
reality.
that is
So
the case.
that's why type 1 gets so much attention, everybody. We talk about the ADA and the JDRF and all of the camps and stuff. And sometimes people with type 2 feel like, well, what about us? But, to have this disease from age, sometimes infancy,
Oh, absolutely.
basically infancy with your daughter, 5 years old, it's really tough to have a healthy life and live to a ripe old age. But people who have really good support have the best chance, and vigilant parents like you, which many are, and it's really awesome to talk to you about it. So getting back to your daughter, and her name is Aurora, isn't that right?
That is correct, Aurora.
What an interesting name. You didn't
Through
know
the
she was
Aurora
diabetic when
Borealis.
she was born. Wow. So how does she feel about having diabetes?
It's a struggle, and just like with anything, you get exhausted mentally, physically. You get exhausted. I feel like I'm always harping on her, berating her, and it's not one of those things that it's out of her control. There's nothing she did to have this, and so she does get taxed a lot emotionally on it.
Yeah.
And when other things come up in your life that normal children deal with, you have that compounding the issue.
Oh,
And so she just, we take it in stride. We do what we can. She has definitely a very large support group from my family to her father's family and both of us. And of course, we go outside to other organizations. I try to get her involved in advocacy and education. It helps to make her feel a little bit more empowered over it.
Right.
And she has great relationship with other type 1 children. She gets to go to those fun snowboarding ski camps.
Did she go to the
Riding on Insulin?
Riding on
Yeah,
Insulin?
she
Yeah,
did.
that was
She
really
loved-
great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then she does the ADA summer camp too at Lakota, and she's super excited. This is her second year back. She had to be 9 to go. So
what week is she going?
Second session.
Okay.
Are you going to be there?
Well, I might be a counselor.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I did it
Good.
once, and it was really an amazing experience because, again, it's all kids with type 1. Unfortunately, I had a cabin of 13-year-old girls, and they were really girly, and my daughter wasn't girly, so I was like, what is this? But it was really amazing because they were so at home with each other. Because, like I said, not very many people have type 1. So when you're the type 1 kid in Waupaca, you might be the only one in your grade, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
It's
I
lonely.
think there might be at any time in Waupaca County maybe 8 to 10 kids in the whole county. So if you had another kid in your school, that would be something. But, that counts grade school, middle school, high school, all the towns in the county. So they are all alone. They truly are all alone. Yeah.
And that's what's really great about these camps and things like that, because they get to strip down that. That's something they have in common with everybody. And I found that the older she gets, the more self-conscious she is about it.
That's what I was going to ask. Well, here she is 10. She's a teenager.
Yeah.
My granddaughter's going to be 10, and she flipped about 2 months ago. She started wearing a homie hat, and her face got very, nondescript. No reaction. You know what I mean?
We're there too.
It's just like overnight somebody flipped that switch, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. Hang on.
Absolutely.
So your daughter's heading into that really rough kind of like
stage.
the next phase of it. So it might have been actually because she was little, it's got its own ups and downs because they can't communicate as well. But now you're heading into the middle school age where you get a whole different set of problems with type 1.
Right. You don't know if the hormones are speaking or if it's their diabetes speaking, because that's a whole different language.
Right.
It really is.
Right. So tell me about her insulin use. How does she get her insulin?
We started when she was diagnosed. We did shot therapy, and we did that until
And how many shots a day?
Depending. Every time we tested, 10 shots a day.
So usually when you
definitely
tested, she needed insulin?
Yep. On the minimum, it was 5 times a day.
So did she use syringes or pens?
We had a combination of both. We did a long-term acting insulin at night, which helped balance out some things. And that would be once a day, and that would be by syringe. But then we had a pen that we would use, which is the same concept. It's just in a pen form.
Right. It's just you dial it up instead of having to look at the little lines. And if anyone out there, by the way, a little commercial break, if any of you are using syringes, did you know that there's these really cool insulin pens and it's really easy and you won't make mistakes? Okay, back to Ashley.
But then we had to wait for that honeymoon phase, which everybody knows. That's the part where the pancreas is finally petering out and dies. It's the sad thing. It's very sad.
Did you have a little ceremony?
Not quite, but we had at least year anniversary, and we celebrated every year. We do have our diversity.
Can I just make one more stupid comment? We were thinking of ways to get people to come to Diabetes Ed, and we thought if it was a diabetician, women would come because they'd do your hair and then talk about Diabetes Ed while they're doing your hair.
That
I think
would
that's
be
a
really
good idea.
nice. I think anytime you can tie it into something else positive, that would be great.
Okay, getting back to your diversity. How do you celebrate? I hope you have cake.
We try to have something like that, but she gets to usually pick a meal of some sort or somewhere she wants to go to eat, and we have a little celebration, and just it's like an encouraging thing. And I know my sisters have participated, and my sister-in-laws always did too, where they just give her a little inspirational card and things like that.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, so
That's awesome. So now how does she get her insulin?
We transitioned as soon as we could get approved into pump therapy. Pump therapy, everybody should try it and use it. And it's really great, especially with dealing with a child, because a lot of their innocence and carefree is taken away. They can't just snack whenever they're outside, for instance, sledding. She can't just come in and have hot chocolate. Those are things that we think about all the time, but other children would take for granted and parents would take for granted. So when we were on shots, it was very structured. You had a set amount of carbs at every meal, and that's the glucose that we need to, and that's not just sugar, ladies and gentlemen. That is carbs,
bread, fruits,
starch,
juice,
veggies, anything.
Potatoes, French fries.
Yeah, so it's not just sugar. And so it was very structured. But moving forward, once we finally got into pump therapy, it was nice. We're still very structured. Of course, we have to weigh and measure everything she consumes.
Right.
And take a look at her blood sugar that she has at the moment, and of course correct and dose for the carbs. But we have a pump, and what's so nice about the pump is it has a little brain of its own, and we calibrate it to Aurora's needs, and she can definitely snack.
Right.
It loosens up the schedule a little bit more, so it tells us how much is in her system right now, how much
insulin,
how much more we can give. And what's great about it is when you use the syringe, you could only go to a half a unit. When you use pump therapy, you go 0.025 or 0.0025 of the unit.
Which kind of pump do you have?
Yeah, Medtronic.
Medtronic.
There's so many pumps out there, though.
Yeah. So that's another thing that would be a huge difference between type 1 and type 2 is, we have people with type 2, and part of the issue with them is it's not that they don't have enough insulin, but their cells are resisting the insulin. So if they're on insulin, they need more insulin. So we have people that take 3 units for one carb. So that's, if you eat a piece of bread, you need 3 units in your shot to process that. Now there are people that are so resistant that we've got like triple strength and quadruple strength insulin. So it's maybe 5 units per 1 little milliliter versus 1 unit per milliliter. So when you just to know that way on the other side of the spectrum, people who have type 1, usually they have no resistance and they need very little insulin. So it's hard to believe that a quarter of a milliliter is going to even be worth it or do anything, right?
But it does. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So how does she do with the pump? Does she manage it herself yet? Not yet, right? But does she participate?
She does, absolutely. She actively participates. Over the last year or 2 that we've been on it, it's been a lot in our control and parents' control, the school nursing, and all that fun stuff, and people who I've brought into our close circle of friends that I trust to watch her because I can't just find childcare.
Do you put them through a class?
I do, or I train them and go over the booklet.
I'm being serious, yes.
Absolutely, because you can't.
You can't.
It's very dangerous. So somebody has to be equipped. So when I invest time, for instance, in somebody who's a sitter, it's a lot of training.
Right. Yeah, as it should be. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing about camp is it's staffed by nurses and doctors
all night long.
So do you get do you just sleep all week when she goes?
I wish I could. I have 2 other children to take care of, but I definitely get a little bit more undisturbed sleep at night. So it's nice. So when I can have more than 2 or 3 hours of sleep in a row, that's fantastic.
Oh, and do you get some nights where you get some respite? Like, does your mother-in-law, does somebody come over?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes. There's times where I get a
I'm
nice break.
I'm coming over. Coming over. I want to be on your list.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not doing well, then your child's not going to do well. So,
absolutely.
It's really important.
And for example, we just got off of sick days. Sick days is another huge thing when you're a diabetic. Your blood sugars are crazy, crazy high all the time, and it's a constant checking. And so that, for instance, that's every hour.
Yeah.
And that's ketone checking every time.
Ketone is where you pee on that little stick. So has she ever been in diabetic ketoacidosis?
We have not been in DKA.
You know what? That is a congratulations to you, and I'm not kidding.
Thank you.
That's all you. You must be doing a fantastic job.
I will not lie, though. We've had some scary high blood sugars, of course.
Not that it can't happen with, if you get sick, that's usually when it happens.
Absolutely.
They go
because
super
you're dehydrated,
high.
and that's how it goes.
So when she's sick and you have to hydrate her and she's puking, what do you do?
That's just constant.
Have you ever had to bring her in for an IV?
We have not.
Okay.
We have not.
Because that would be the key thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when type 1s are diagnosed, they're in DKA because they're so sick, because they have a lot of flu symptoms that parents wouldn't know. And she was diagnosed in August, so it was super hot. Oh. And so when she was drinking all that water, that's a big, huge red flag.
Yeah.
We didn't think anything of it because it was one of the hottest Augusts we've had. But the fortunate thing, which not all people are going to have that safety net, is her dad's a paramedic.
Oh.
And so he kind of noticed the warning signs, and he was gone for a 24-hour shift. And he told me, take note about how much she's drinking and how much she's using the restroom. And so we got her in right away the next day.
Wow. I remember working as a nursing supervisor, and we'd get a kid in the ER. I remember one kid came in and the parents thought she had anorexia because she had rapid weight loss, and she was pale, and boy, she got flown out to Children's, and that's usually the kids that get diagnosed at diagnosis. We don't keep them here, and we don't send them to Appleton. They actually go to Children's Hospital because it's correct. Really intense. I mean, things can go bad so fast with that.
So fast.
And so they usually will fly them out if they're in DKA.
And that's the same thing with us. We came into the hospital here, and of course we were...
We hit the eject button.
Eject right away. And
get out of here.
She was taken to Children's as well. Yeah.
Because it's so different for children. You really need those specialists. Yeah. So now where do you have to go to the doctor?
We still go there. We still go there.
Do you go all the way to Milwaukee, or do you go to Neenah?
We don't. We get to go to Neenah, which is so nice. But for day 1 training, we had to go to Milwaukee for that, because the Fox Valley was not prepared for that yet.
Right.
And I don't know yet. It's been a few years since we've
I am not
been
sure
there.
either. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think they still go to Milwaukee.
Day 1 Milwaukee.
Yeah. And then they transition to Neenah.
So we get our quarterly care there.
So quarterly you go in. So you're really the specialist then.
Absolutely. Basically. We're the dietitians, the nurses, we're administering all the medicine. And that's really overwhelming for many people, because that's a whole, when you're cast into that world, and I never counted calories or carbs or anything like that. So it was quite a learning curve for me, and very overwhelming.
So when you're first diagnosed, the whole family goes through classes.
That's
stuff,
correct.
Right? Okay.
And a few of those trainings too, we brought in her grandparents for it as well, because they're our first line of sitters and trusted caretakers.
Wow.
And then I have nurses for sisters. So.
Oh, well, you're kind of set up for this. Oh my goodness. I think we're really running over. This is our longest program over, but I said, I feel like we could talk all day. But so let me just ask one final question. Any advice you have for people who have kids with type 1 at any age?
Network, get supportive groups, and no matter how fantastic your child is, they're going to go through really bad times. So it's always good to be proactive.
Right.
And try to spin it positively, because you can get down in the dumps and get into the negative stuff. You can look at all the scary statistics and things like that. But as long as you try to stay positive and see that silver lining, it helps you as the caretaker, and it also helps your child.
Are there any JDRF events coming up in our area that you know of? Oh,
we have lots of fun stuff coming up. I'm actually a mentor coach for a lot of families when they're first-time walkers.
Wow.
So lots in the Valley, Green Bay, all coming up. I know in May we have the Fox Valley one. That's what my family does. And
you do the Fox Valley one?
Absolutely. We're avid fundraisers for it, and we're so close. There's so many great projects out there. Artificial pancreas, encapsulation. Oh, I'm just super excited. It gives you chills when you watch some of these things and see the fruition come from the money that we've raised.
Excellent. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's completely inspiring, and I hope that if anybody has any questions, they reach out. You know, the ADA has a fantastic website. JDRF has one too. There's lots of diabetes websites, but ADA is the most comprehensive, I think. So
absolutely.
And it's got lots of, really evidence-based stuff on it. You can always call the Diabetes Ed Department at Theta Care 258-1186 if you have questions about, your own family, or if you're concerned about another family that might need support. And again, just look into those. If you have a kid with type 1 or know someone, look into the camp at Roshold. It's really excellent for many reasons. So
And always ask a type 1 parent how you can help.
that's another good piece of advice. All right. Thank you, Ashley. Thanks, Waupaca. We'll talk next month.
Thank you.